Everyone, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. I am excited today. We get to talk about Danielle Hunter, a Minnesota Viking, at least for 2023. 2024, he's an unrestricted free agent. What does that mean for him, and what does this season mean for him? We'll talk about that next on the Ron Johnson Show.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. Now the Ron Johnson Show. On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. He's played with them, hung out with them, and grown up with all the big names in Minnesota sports. They're hanging out with Ron Johnson. It's the Ron Johnson Show on the Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. And it starts now.
Hey everyone, it's Ron Johnson. This is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. I'm excited because, of course, we know contract talk within the NFL, when it's your team you cover, it makes it a little bit tough sometimes to operate. The team gets really cryptic. The players don't want to say anything. It gets tense, it feels like, around the facility. Well, tense no more. Danielle Hunter is a signed man. He's got a big payday for this year alone. And then now next year he gets to go out and find himself either a new team or a new contract with the Minnesota Vikings. He's an unrestricted free agent, and they cannot tag him. He can't be a franchise tag, because we see all these franchise tag talks going on with the running backs. Danielle Hunter did not want to end up there. The Vikings did not want that on their conscience either. So that's been done. But I want everybody to know this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Just visit FanDuel.com/Locked On for any new offers they have to offer, but also to make every moment more. Why? Because it's football season, people. Football season. It's around the corner, and that means the betting is going to skyrocket. We'll talk a little bit about gambling at some point this week, because the NFL has gotten crazy with that as well. And that man, Sean Payton, has talked about the NFL gambling. He's talked about other coaches suck. We're going to talk about Sean Payton. Don't worry. But as I bring my producer to the show, Sam Ekstrom, Sam, we got to talk about Danielle Hunter, because Danielle Hunter is what everybody was worried about. Danielle Hunter was what everybody wanted to know what was going to happen next. Danielle Hunter was a big reason this defense was going to do what it does. And him and Marcus Davenport, I like somebody's tweet when I tweeted out that the contract was done. Somebody tweeted, the defense now can go from 0 to 99 really fast, which Marcus Davenport is 0.
That's good.
Here's 99. I was like, I like that. They're going to go from 0 to 99. I'm still in that one, by the way. I will give credit to the tweeter or the Xer. I don't know. Is it an Xer now? Or
I'm never going to call it that. Just Twitter.
We're Xting. Yeah. I was Xting last night. Like, I don't know if that sounds right for kids to say. Like, I'm jumping on that X. Like, why would he do that? Like, all the negative stuff that comes around with X, the word X and how it works, X anything, like ex-wife, ex-husband, ecstasy, Xting. Sounds like sexting. I mean, come on. Like, it just, to me, it could have been done a little bit better, but I'm going to call out that Xter, I guess. That Xter. That X, okay. Whoever X'd that. What did you X today?
I feel like I'm logging into an inappropriate website whenever I launch the app. It's just.
Yeah, I know. It does. I'm surprised you didn't call it triple X. Like,
that'd get our attention.
You could have done that. Yeah. But X. But tweet. It's going to be tweet. So I'm going to give credit to that tweeter. But Sam, when you saw Danielle Hunter had officially signed, so first, the news was thrown out there that the Vikings are willing to trade Danielle Hunter, and they're taking trade talks. I don't know what you thought about that one, because clearly somebody leaked that. And I personally don't think it was the Minnesota Vikings. I feel like that was his person, maybe his camp. Why? Because the minute that report goes out, the Vikings are interested in trade talks for Danielle Hunter. Guarantee a couple GMs are like, oh, hey, what's up, Kwesi? So if you think about that, and then Kwesi maybe like, hey man, there's a market for Danielle Hunter. Let's just see what we have. Let's stick with it. Or the Vikings did leak it. Devil's advocate. And there was no phone calls that came through. And then they're like, look, there's no trade. Like, here's the teams that called us, Danielle. What do you want to do? Because, a lot of times when you trade a player, you do have that conversation, especially if you want to keep them, and you honestly discuss this. This is the thing that sucks. Like, it's tough. And I forgot who I was just talking to that talked about their agent. I can't remember what player it was, but I just heard it on the Dan Patrick show. I don't know if it was Aaron Rodgers or somebody else, but he was like, I tell my agent not to call me at this point in my career. I wish I knew what guy it was, but he's like, I tell my agent.
Kirk Cousins?
Oh, it was it Kirk? Yeah. He said,
Kirk.
I trust. Yeah, it was Kirk. You're right, man. And he said, I trust my agent. Look at Sam. 50 points for the day, Sam. 50 points to you. Kirk Cousins did say that. He said, I trust my agent to this point. We've done enough work together. Don't call me for every little thing the Vikings tell you, because I don't want to have that negativeness in my head. You deal with that side of it. If there's an offer we need to talk about, call me. If not, just keep negotiating for me, because you know where I want to get to. You know where I want to get, which is talking about Kirk Cousins, because he also was playing one last year on his deal. And so he talked about this offseason. So I'm guessing, I don't know where Danielle Hunter was in that. Like, he's young. He's 28. He'll be 28. Did he not want to know everything the Vikings said about him? But in the end, the Vikings, somebody leaked it. There was trade rumors, and then there was a deal done. Sam, when you saw that there was a deal done, or first when you saw the trade rumors, did you think the trade was going to happen?
I kind of did, honestly. I thought that this thing had been dragging on now for a bit. Kwesi was acting a little bit cryptically. I thought KOC was kind of dodging questions too. He kind of had a couple talking points and talking about the dialogue that he and Danielle were having every day, but I never sensed that they were really confident in him coming back. So I bought it. I totally thought that it was a possibility. I think, though, that there's a threshold that needed to be met to trade Danielle Hunter. You needed to get a good haul in return, like at minimum, second round pick and maybe a late round pick to go with it at minimum. But Ron, pat yourself on the back, and me as well. I feel like we talked on this show about this being the likeliest outcome, beefing up the 1-year contract, giving him top 10 defensive end money, and letting it play out, letting him be a free agent next year. I think that's exactly what happened. He's making Von Miller, Eric Armstead money. He's probably about the 7th highest paid edge rusher now in the league. I think this works out well for Danielle. I think it gives the Vikings flexibility down the road. And, odds are, I don't know if you re-sign him. Like, this might be the swan song for Danielle Hunter, but you do get him for this year, which I think is critical for this defense and the hopes of this defense being legit. So I'm okay with the resolution here. I think this is always kind of the way it was headed.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too. So when I heard the trade, here's where I went with. I tweeted it, so it's out there. Mm-hmm. My tweet just basically said, if Danielle Hunter, he has two options. One, play under a 3-4 defense, figure out if he's truly an outside linebacker, which I don't think he is. Honestly, I just don't think he is. But I do know, like DeMarcus Ware and some of these other guys that were considered true defensive ends ended up becoming really good outside linebackers when you think about the Dallas Cowboys and the Denver Broncos. When you think about DeMarcus Ware going to the Denver Broncos and making that change, he was really good. Maybe Brian Flores knows how to get Danielle Hunter to get to what he needs to get out of him versus what Ed Donatel did. Here's the teams in the NFL, though, that could fit Danielle Hunter's true hand in the ground defensive end, opposite another defensive end type of defense. You got the Washington Commanders, who are now actually petitioning to get their old name back. I don't know if you saw that. Like, fans want the Redskins back. So this will be interesting with Magic Johnson. New York Jets, Chicago Bears, Cincinnati Bengals, Cleveland Browns, Bills, Eagles, Saints, 49ers. I don't know if they would load up again and have Bosa with Danielle Hunter. That would be a lot. Indianapolis Colts, Carolina Panthers, who have room to grow and get better. They have a new young quarterback, so they have a rookie quarterback where they can pay for a defense, and they once went to a Super Bowl with Julius Peppers and a really good defense defense. And then the Chiefs, who don't have a lot of money, but it's the allure of like, hey, I can go win a Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes maybe in 2 years, and I can find me another team. So those are the teams that theoretically run it. Now, they do say the New York Jets use a variation of the 4-3, but then they switch to a 3-4. as it's based depending on the schemes they're facing. When you think about who the Jets face, the Dolphins, spread offense, because it says in spread offenses, spread offense, Dolphins, Patriots technically were kind of like a spread offense back in the day, because this goes back to 2012. It has been updated, though. It does say the Minnesota Vikings have been a 4-3 defense since 2012. And then it says new head coach Kevin O'Connell has announced that under Donatel in 2022, he's going to switch to a 3-4. He's sticking to the same with Brian Flores. So when you think about those teams, and they say, the Kansas City Chiefs have a hybrid 4-3 defense in 2019 when they hired Steve Spagnuolo. So what we don't know, here's what we don't know about this defense, because I hear hybrid. I hear continuously changing. I hear front, Robert Saleh, talking about the 3-4 versus the 4-3 defense. And Robert Saleh, blah, blah. San Francisco 49ers switch from a 3-4 to a 4-3, and that's why the Jets are running a 4-3. But they talk about it's a hybrid. I think Brian Flores is one of these young guys. When I say those names, Robert Saleh, you hear some of these young names. Mike Tomlin was a young name, and he's still I think he's still innovative, though, in my opinion. Like Andy Reid, I would still consider him innovative. Even though he's old, I would consider him an innovative offensive guy. When you think about these young names, I would put Brian Flores in this. So for Danielle Hunter to resign, clearly there was a conversation about what could be done, what they're going to do with him, and how, we know you're a 4-3 guy, but man, look, here's what our 3-4 is going to look like. I think you're really going to like it. And because think about the Pittsburgh Steelers and TJ Watt. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't truly drop back all the time. Most of the time he's pinning his ears back and going after the quarterback. So there's a rhyme and reason to this. And who does Brian Flores know? He knows Mike Tomlin. Who's Brian Flores been around? He's been around Belichick. So we'll see. We'll see why Danielle Hunter, Marcus Davenport and Danielle Hunter now, to me, I'm excited. Like, I'm excited to see. Like, I know I have my I left my house for this t-shirt on. And I feel like that's what Danielle Hunter did when he went to training camp. He's like, I left my house for this. Like, y'all ain't trying to pay me. And say him. When you look at why, because I think for people to understand why, because people are like, oh, man, you signed a big time deal, man. Blah, blah, blah. Danielle Hunter's contract, $20 million guaranteed in the first year. 17 million guaranteed. Yeah. $20 million. So you got $20 million, 17 guaranteed with no tag clause. They can't tag them. We know the running back situation in the NFL. But here's where it got crazy to me. And when I really looked at the Danielle Hunter contract, he signed a 5-year deal, $72 million. And as you pointed out, Sam, what did they do last year?
Yeah. So, and that deal got restructured a couple times along the way. So, like, again, these long-term contracts in the NFL, they can rip them up, it seems like, any time. So right. Last year, remember last year he was coming off 2 consecutive years of injury. They didn't want to extend him last year, so they just moved money from 2023 up to 2022 to give him a raise last year, and that's why he was so shortchanged this year on his contract. So they opened this door for this kind of holdout last year by moving all the money up and setting up like a $5 million salary for him this year, which he was never going to play under. And that's why they had this contentious time.
Correct. So when you look at his dead cap space for last year, it was $30 million. His cash last year was $20 million. And that was basically to get him to $72 million. And you're right, they gave him his whole contract as of last year. They said, look, we are going to honor it. So that's what you understand too, man. Like, this was a Rick Spielman contract that Kwesi honored and said, look, man, let's get you your money, man. Like, I'm not going to play this game with you. Did you know this, Sam, too? I didn't realize this. As of now, his age, and I don't know what day this is right, he's 28 and 282 days old. It's very numbery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 28 in about 6 months. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Or 9 months. And
his experience is 8 years. A lot of 8s. He was the 88th overall pick. Oh, Sam. It's a lot of 8s in this 2-8. So maybe it's the number 28 million. Like, is he a $28 million signing bonus guy? Like, I mean, I'm just throwing it out there.
That could be the number. Yeah, that could be the number when he signs with the 49ers next year.
Maybe it's a $28 million deal, $88 million overall. $28 million signing bonus and $88 million contract. I don't know.
Too bad he can't wear 88 because that's retired with Alan Page. Otherwise,
that would have been nice. He looks better than 99 though. But that would have been a nice homage, especially with those night uniforms, the new throwback uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
But here I go before we jump it over to the Sean Payton in segment 2. When you look at Danielle Hunter's contract, you're right. We said it on the Ron Johnson show before. The deal has to be a 1-year deal just to figure this out for a year, because you have to see if he fits with Brian Flores. You can't just sign him to a 5-year deal and then you get him in this defense and you're like, yeah, he really doesn't fit. He doesn't fit to what I'm doing. Like, Brian Flores doesn't know. Like, you could see him on TV, you can watch film, but when you actually make those calls, when you actually say over front, under front, I need you at the 5 technique, I need you at the 3 technique, I need you standing up, head up over the center. Because we know we've seen Mike Zimmer do that, where you put Danielle Hunter, I don't know if you remember that Saints game, you put Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffin over the guards, and they wreaked havoc, because he's like, look, the guards are their weak spot. Let me put my best rushers over the guards. I'll put Anthony Barr outside, and they wreaked havoc. So who knows what Brian Flores is going to do? Mike Zimmer never got a lot of credit for that, but that was a ridiculous way to look at the game, and a mind, like he mined, just his brain in that moment was like, oh my goodness, let me just go after this Saints defense. And I think it was Sean Payton at the time, which we're going to talk about Sean Payton in a little bit.
There you go.
But the Vikings did right. They did right by Danielle Hunter. I think this is the best case scenario was you got to sign him for at least a year. He also knows jump into a team this late, who knows where he would end up. He's friends with Everson Griffin. So Everson Griffin, I know, regretted going to the Cowboys for the same amount of money the Vikings offered. Because he, probably would have had a better year, would have been more comfortable, would have been home, would have had, people around him to help him with his mental health. Because he did say he is bipolar. So there's a lot of factors in this. I'm pretty sure Danielle Hunter weighed before he just said, you know what, let's sign with the Vikings for $20 million. Also, $20 million is a lot of money. More than what's his name? Saquon Barkley took 11. He didn't want 10.1. He wanted 11. Danielle Hunter went from 5 to 20. So that's definitely a win for the players and for Danielle Hunter and defensive ends. But again, in this defense, we don't know what we're going to get out of Danielle Hunter, what Brian Flores is going to do. I'm guessing it's going to be a hybrid. It feels hybrid-ish. You think about the teams they're going to face. Spread offense is definitely going to dictate what type of defense in front you come out in. So we can probably go down the line at some point this week maybe and talk about that even. The teams are going to face, how many teams are going to spread them out, where Danielle Hunter and Marcus Davenport are not going to be true outside line. They're going to be like, moving around, trying to say, how can we get after this quarterback and create pressure so he only has less than 3 seconds? You want to give a quarterback less than 3 seconds. If he can get the ball out of his hand in 2 point whatever, quarterback did a great job, but the defense did a great job forcing him to throw it before he was ready to. So that's where I go with this. I'm excited for Danielle Hunter. Happy that he got this done. That dark cloud, we were both out there training camp. It's weird. It's weird sometimes when contract talks, because coaches don't want to say anything. They're very tight-lipped, and everybody feels uncomfortable even asking the question. And now they don't have to be uncomfortable. Hey, Danielle Hunter signed. Hey, Danielle Hunter, are you excited to be back? Everybody can say, yes, we're glad to have Danielle back. The business side of it, because Kevin O'Connell and I can say the business side of it is done. That's not my deal, but I'm glad the business team got it done. I've talked to Danielle Hunter numerous times in the facility, as he's going to allude to, and, I knew Danielle Hunter wanted to be here, and I wanted him here. So I think for the Minnesota Vikings, that was the best case scenario. When I look at these other teams, honestly, I don't know if Danielle would have wanted to be. I mean, a Jet, yeah, 3-4, possible like winning, but I don't think they have room for him. Dalvin Cook, I don't know if you saw that, was just at the Jets training camp.
Wait till the Daily 3, Ron. We'll get into it.
Okay. But Cleveland Browns, Za'Darius just went there. I could maybe see that. Bills, contender. Eagles, contender, but they don't have the money. They just signed Jalen Hurts. Saints, maybe, if you consider them a new contender. 49ers don't have the room. So you're looking at the coach of the Panthers. Is that worth your time? Now, the Bengals would be a good one, but I don't know if they have the money because they know they got to sign Joe Burrow coming up. So I think for Danielle Hunter, this is the best case scenario right now. And then he'll get to prove his worth. And then the Vikings have to figure it out with this cap. They'll get some more space in the cap next year. As we alluded to, the amount of money they're going to have in the cap. We know Justin Jefferson's got to be signed. And Danielle Hunter, if they want to re-sign him, they can figure that out. But it's time to move on to this Sean Payton drama. It not only affects the Saints and the Broncos and the Jets. It affects a lot of teams because a lot of coaches often are being caught ask questions And most coaches handled it well. Kevin O'Connell's handled it great because I know the Mike Zimmer stuff came up. He handled it like gangbusters. But we'll talk about that next. But before we do that, we have a word from our sponsors.
Let's talk about FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Football season is here, kind of. Training camp form. You can probably bet on preseason football coming up, but what you can do today, you can bet baseball. You can bet a full slate of Major League Baseball action. Twins aren't in action today, but you can bet the Orioles and Blue Jays. You can bet the Rays and the Yankees, Brewers and Nationals. In particular, I'm looking at the Phillies and the Marlins. Yes, I like the Marlins at -106 tonight. That would be my wager at FanDuel Major League Baseball lines. You can bet all the lines, all the leagues at FanDuel Sportsbook. And new customers get up to $200 back in bonus bets, 10 times their initial bet back. So bet 20, get 200, bet 10, get 100 at FanDuel. Just one of many great promotions always going on at FanDuel Sportsbook. Safe, secure, easy to use, get paid instantly when you win. No better place to bet baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So again, head to FanDuel.com/lockedon, FanDuel.com/lockedon, up to $200 back in bonus bets, whether you win or lose. FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball.
Well, you know what? On the Ron Johnson Show, Sam, we often cover Minnesota sports. You people know that for the everydayers. I will say this. I'm very proud of myself, Sam. I didn't bring this up in the open, but my daughter's team won again. So I know last year this time, I'm looking at the trophy. Actually, it's right over here by the camera crew. The trophy's still sitting here in my office. And so we won the Nationals last year for 10U. Well, fast forward a year, my daughter just won again for 12U. They got a trophy, team celebrated. I still have my voice, Sam. I made it the entire weekend. And I did not go crazy. I kept my voice, kept it together. Some big moments in the game. My daughter came up to bat, down 3, 6-3 or 7-4. They were down 3. It was 7-4. My daughter comes up to bat, 2 on. No, sorry, bases loaded. Bases were loaded, and
bases
I'm like,
juiced.
Bases juiced. 1 out, and I'm like, oh, here we go. Please, just put it. Don't hit a ground ball because she's a lefty now. She's switching right to left. I'm like, just put it in play. But she hits a nice stinger out to left field, scores 1. Funny moment. She thought it was a double because technically it would be in most games, but these girls were really good. And so the girl got to it quick and threw it into home plate, which stopped our second girl from trying to score because technically you should get 2 runs on a single to the outfield. But we only got 1. And so she's like literally just jogging a second thinking she got a stand-up double. And the catcher has the ball. So then she has to like sprint back to first base. And we're all like, get back, and then the next girl hits a ground ball. Girl scores. She gets thrown out. My daughter makes a second. Next girl gets walked on purpose. They walk the bases loaded. Even though even their second baseman screaming at their coach, like, Coach, we have 2 outs. We don't need to load the bases. But he wanted to be out at any base, which I get because if it's a ground ball to second, you can just tag second. And so he loaded the bases. And then our 5th batter, which the good thing we were in the heart of our lineup at that point. Like I think number 8, 9, luckily got on base. Not luckily, but got on base. And then 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. We knew they would get it done. 5 comes up. She hits an absolute stinger. Through the infield. She was Sophie. Yeah. Yep. So 5 hits an absolute stinger through the infield. And we told her if you put it anywhere near the grass, and it wasn't far in the grass, it was like 2-3 steps into the grass because the left fielder charged it. My daughter was at second. She's super fast. I'm like, if you put it out there, she's coming home. She rounded third. Girl makes the throw. She scores. Everybody runs out cheering. But yeah, I kept my voice. I was like, I did not lose my voice. I also got warned. I did get warned. I got warned because one of our girls tried to bunt and then she pulled back. They called it a strike. Well, then fast forward to the other team does it. Girl goes to bunt, literally reaches for the ball, but it's high, calls it a ball. I'm like, she swung at that. Like it was a bunt. Turns around, and I didn't even see it because I turned around like mad, like slam. I must have slammed my foot. Everybody said the turned and said, "Hey, that's enough of that. We don't want to hear that again." I'm like, all I said was she offered, and you're mad already. So that was probably right the reason why I kept my mouth shut. But good thing I don't have to deal with umpires all the time.
Voice is strong today. That's all that matters.
It's good. Yeah, it's a Monday, and I'm like, man, I got my voice. But speaking of having your voice, there's a lot of times coaches are asked questions. And sometimes they find their voice. Sometimes they play I don't really feel like talking about that right now. What else do you want to talk about? Because I know Mike Zimmer's done that. When they ask him questions, he would always do that sometimes. Like, yeah, we're not going to talk about that, but let's talk about this team. Let's talk about the guys in the locker room, because a lot of people do that. Hey, how is Everson Griffin? I'm not talking about that. Let's talk about the guys in my locker room. That's all I can deal with right now. Similar to Kwesi, talk about running backs and Dalvin Cook. He was like, hey, let's talk about my running backs. Let's talk about the ones I have right now. And so we know that. Sean Payton didn't do that. Sean Payton, when they said, hey, Nathaniel Hackett, he should have been like, let's talk about my players. Let's talk about me as the coach. Let's talk about Russell Wilson. But tell me, Sam, what happened? What's the drama? Because I saw Ryan Clark tweet about it. I don't know if you saw this. Ryan Clark tweeted about it, and then he went on ESPN about it. Then Chris Canty went on ESPN as well with Greeny, and he called Ryan Clark out, literally by name. Ryan Clark then comments on Chris Canty's Instagram post and says, hey, leave my name out your mouth, and I'll leave yours out of mine. And Chris Canty said, like, you can get emotion or whatever, but what you said was BS. Like, we know what coaches are going to do, because Ryan Clark said Sean Payton was unprofessional and something else. Chris Canty was just saying, like, man, we know people say stuff all the time, blah, blah. Right. Chris Canty didn't back down. Ryan Clark then says, all right, I see how you're going to operate. I know how to handle you now moving forward. So, like, he's like, you got my number. You could have called me, so all this drama. So I'm like, all of this from Sean Payton. So what happened, Sam? Tell me what happened.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that Ryan Clark tweet, by the way, going back a few days. But anyway, so Sean Payton sits down with USA Today. So I'm guessing this wasn't a press conference situation. He was one-on-one, let his guard down, told USA Today that Nathaniel Hackett basically was a hack. This might have been one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the NFL. That's how bad it was. That's what Payton said to USA Today.
Wow.
Obviously, that circulated, made a lot of headlines. Aaron Rodgers, buddies with Nathaniel Hackett from the Green Bay days, and he's now in New York. He is his coordinator with the Jets. And Rodgers says about Payton's comments, Hackett is arguably my favorite coach I've ever had in the NFL. I thought it was way out of line, inappropriate, and I think he needs to keep my coaches' names out of his mouth. And yeah, pulling the Will Smith line.
I know that's what came to my head. Like, if this were like the ESPYs and Sean Payton was on stage talking about Nathaniel Hackett and making jokes, I could see Aaron Rodgers screaming from the crowd, keep my coach's name out your MFing mouth. And then he walks up on stage and slaps Sean Payton, or Aaron Rodgers slaps Sean Payton, and then everybody's like, "Oh, okay, we got."
Well, they do play each other week 5.
He might slap him. He might slap him when he sees him.
Situation in the post game handshake. But this is why coaches are so reluctant to criticize other coaches, right? Because number one, they're part of this fraternity where they know how tough the job is, and you never hear coaches rip on other coaches like that. And oftentimes, you run back into them in your career. You might be on the same coaching staff as them, or you might have
want
players.
You might
have players that have played for them and respect them too, and then you tick them off. So it was an odd move by Payton. Very, like, he said the quiet part out loud, and then he did kind of apologize. He did walk it back a little bit in his next press conference, but I think the cat's out of the bag. So what do you make of all this?
Well, Sean Payton did say he put his media hat on instead of his coach's hat. So I think it is tough. Like, people act like coaches or humans even have this whole like business thing locked down. You often forget where you're at. I've been that person as well. Like, I know I've been on and the good thing is, like, we can edit stuff, but I've been on Viking shows and thought I was on a Fox show or an NBC show or Pat McAfee. Like, you forget sometimes where you're at because the cameras start, lights are bright, and you just start talking. And there's been a couple times on like Viking shows I've said stuff that were not Vikings friendly. I've said stuff that was privy information that the Vikings are like, you can say it on Pat McAfee, but we don't want to talk about it on our show. Could be Dalvin Cook, could be contract talks, could be whatever. And so I've been there. I've also had the edit button. I've also had the ability to like even say it after the segment ends like, hey, should I have said that? And they're like, no, that's fine. Because the Vikings know I'm going to toe that line anyway. And that's why they love it. But they do make sure to keep me in line. I'll say this. Sean Payton didn't know it. So if this is where I go with Sean Payton. If he truly believes like, hey, I shouldn't have said it, great. But if you said it knowing like you're okay with it, if everybody was okay with it, that's where I feel like it's a little bit hypocritical. Because I feel like if nobody, like if Ryan Clark and all these people didn't attack him, I don't know if he would have cared. I don't think he would have cared. I think he would have thought he was fine. Like, I think he just was like being Sean Payton. I mean, this is a guy that did the skull chant in US Bank Stadium to mock the Vikings fans. Like, that's who he is. He has a little bit of jerk in him. It's okay. If you're a jerk, be a jerk. If you can do the jerk, I don't know if you remember that dance saying, you're a jerk. You're a jerk. I know. You're a jerk. Jerk. So, like, he is. He has a little bit of jerk in him. We know that. We've seen him. Like, we've watched him against the Vikings year in and year out, playoffs, the way he coaches, the things he says to the media, the way he talks about players. Like, he's been that way. So he is that guy. And maybe that's good for the Denver Broncos right now. Maybe that's what they need. They need somebody to attack and be, because it felt like they were real meek in like, you know, we're the Broncos. We're not going to, like, we don't have a quarterback this week because of COVID. So we're just going to play. Like, Sean Payton would have fought tooth and nail to say this is absolute BS that you're going to make me play this game without a quarterback. 2, Sean Payton would have reached out to a quarterback he knows or practice and figured it out. Say, you know what? Screw the NFL. I'm going to get a guy here to play quarterback. So when you think about all that, like that's where I think Sean Payton's needed. Now, talking about a coach that's gone on this side of it. Mike Zimmer, no longer a Minnesota Viking. Toxic culture was brought up by the players. I personally know I had a conversation with Kwesi on the sideline during training camp. I've talked to Kevin O'Connell and his wife before. And you know, just as former athletes, hey man, like it's so different here for training camp, man. The players, I'm just telling them like what I see. And he's like, look, and he didn't say like, yeah, this is off the record. He's just like, look, man, he's like, everybody's not for everybody. And we've heard that conversation before. PJ Fleck said that. He's like, everybody's not for everybody. He was like, Mike Zimmer could go to Bill Belichick's culture, probably do all the stuff he does, and players will love it because they're used to Belichick, like acting how he acts. Mm-hmm. Some of these, he said, quote unquote, some of these players, we have to understand who they are. He's like, we're not just general. He's like, I'm not the general manager of like the team. He said, I'm the general manager of people. He said, my job is to manage the people. And he was like, I'm not worried about like anything from the past. I'm just going to build what I think works. And he's like, Mike Zimmer got to the playoffs. He got to this. He got the NFC championship. You know, like, so you can say whatever you want. When things are going bad, everything is looked at. When they were losing, those players felt the pressure of losing, how he acted, blah, blah. When you're winning, players are loving it. Think about this. If the Vikings do go 6-11, I guarantee there's going to be conversations about the culture. Mm-hmm. Like, oh my God, it's too laid back, and he doesn't put he does, like, players don't do this and they don't do this when they're supposed to do. Like, people will find a way to nitpick when things aren't going good. It's just how it is. When things aren't going good, people will nitpick, players will argue and be mad about stuff. It sucks to lose. And when you're losing, everything gets elevated. When you're winning, you don't notice the cracks in the ceiling. You don't notice the holes in the wall. You're like, man, we 13-4. Who cares about the air conditioner not working all the time? When you're 6-11, you're like, man, why is it so hot in here? Why don't they ever fix the air? Man, why is there a hole in the wall? Why is the couch so uncomfortable? Like, it's just different. And I think that's what we're going to see. Like, and I hope the Vikings always have success, but we'll see that. But on Sean Payton's note, he went too far. Like, I don't think you should ever call out a coach. Like, you should never, like, say he did a hack job. You don't know. You don't know what Russell Wilson was doing to this team. Like, I saw a lot of the sideline videos and jokes people were posting every time players would look at Russell Wilson like, oh, so this is Mr. Unlimited interceptions. Like, you know, like the Melvin Gordon is probably the funniest of all. Like, Melvin Gordon's face at Russell Wilson when Russell Wilson comes off and like tries to get them hyped. Then there was rumors of a player and Russell Wilson get into a fight because Russell Wilson said something in the defensive huddle and the defense like pushed him out. Like, shut up. Like, we you suck. Why are you even in my huddle? You know, like, there's a lot of that, like, where it just, When you're losing, it sucks. So we'll see if Sean Payton can turn it around and they can win. And if they don't, you can't say that they ain't had to get a hack job. That team just is not good. Maybe Russell Wilson's not the guy y'all thought he was. And so that's why I think Sean Payton went too far. I don't know, but what do you think?
I like, on one hand, I appreciate candor and honesty from coaches, but I think they have to have some tact in it, right? Like, I don't think you don't need to punch down at the guy who got fired there 1 year earlier. It's just not a good look. You got to have some boundaries about who you're going to criticize. And I think, former head coach, a respected coordinator in the league, that's not the person you want to criticize. And look what you've done. You've already created bulletin board material for the Jets in a key matchup in your season. They're going to recirculate this all the way up until week 5. So now you've put yourself up against a wall there. So bad move on Peyton's part, even if he was being honest. And I mean, if you look at it, probably was a bad job, but again, you don't say that part to the media. That's got to be in the privacy of your coach's meeting room.
Yeah, well, Sean Payton, like I said, we know what Sean Payton is. He's the guy that's called chance. So I don't think he really cares. I think he more got his hand got caught in the cookie jar. Like, I think that's the thing. Like, he always backtracks when his hand gets caught in the cookie jar, and that's what happened. But we got to move on to the Daily 3. Spent a lot of time on the show today, so we're going to go about 30 seconds each on these topics. But we got 3 questions, 30 seconds each, coming up. But SiriusXM, proud partner of Locked On. Just know that you can get all the Locked On show content on the SXM app. Just go to the SXM app on iTunes or Android. Whatever market you use, you can find the SXM app. It's kind of cool, too, because you can get the SiriusXM radio stations. You can get the music with you in the gym when you're working out. You can have all your music right there to go. If you have your subscription, if your car subscription can work for the app as well, just go to the SXM app. But also, when you're on there, search Locked On Sports Minnesota. Just search Locked On. You'll get the Locked On Sports Minnesota. You'll get all of our shows right there on your device. You can download and take them with you on the plane if you download them to go. It's a great way to stay in contact with Locked On Sports Minnesota and the Ron Johnson Show. And this is going to be a great training camp. We're going to have a lot of content today. The players are in pads. So, of course, we're going to discuss that. What do the players look like? How strong does Danielle Hunter look? And did he even show up today for practice? Because we know there's Jonathan Taylor rumors out there about a back injury, and he dispelled that on Instagram and Twitter right away. I don't have a back injury. I don't know who leaked this, but if they put me on an injury because of my back, it's on them. They're lying. They're lying because they don't want to pay me, and this like they don't want to pay all the running backs in the NFL. But again, that's not what this is about. It's about XM Radio. We get all of our shows right on the SXM app. Just search Locked On Minnesota. Well, Sam, it's time for the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes each. Take it away.
All right. Dalvin Cook has visited the New York Jets. Haven't gotten wind of any offers yet, but he's visited. He's in New York. Aaron Rodgers just restructured his deal, cleared up some cash. Jets have money. So if Dalvin Cook joins A-Rod and the Jets, would that make them more of a contender in the AFC, Ron?
Of course. Breece Hall is good, but we don't know what Breece Hall is going to be. Like any player that comes off a big-time injury and then they come back, you don't know what you're going to get. Adrian Peterson, again, was a unicorn. So if they get Dalvin Cook, yes, and even if Breece Hall is at the top of his game, they have money to afford Dalvin Cook. You have a ridiculous two-headed monster with Dalvin Cook in the screen game. Is probably one of the best out there. Aaron Rodgers, we know, creates space. He has the receivers to create like mismatches downfield. When everybody's chasing receivers downfield, you dump it off to Dalvin Cook. He's going to give you who knows what. We've seen him break a long one against the Colts. So Dalvin Cook is a playmaker. Yes, that will make the Jets better. And the Jets fans, I don't know if you saw that, they were chanting Dalvin Cook. And then Dalvin Cook even retweeted it with a heart, a green heart. So he clearly wants to be a Jet, but he probably wants the best offer out there. But if I have a bunch of $7 million offers, I'm taking it from the Jets. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that he would just give him another weapon, take a little bit more pressure off Aaron Rodgers. And it's not bad to have 2 good running backs in your stable. A rotation of Hall and Cook, I love it. I would love that. So yeah, no, I think he does improve that offense.
Yeah.
Staying on the running back theme, Ron, you mentioned this, Jonathan Taylor versus the Colts. This is the new big brouhaha right now. So Jim Irsay, the owner, had some anti-running back tweets He needs to learn to stop tweeting or Xting, as you might say. Jonathan Taylor has requested a trade from the Colts. Now the Colts are saying that he hurt his back and they're going to put him on the non-football injury list, and it's kind of a big mess. So if Jonathan Taylor was on the trade block, Ron, with all the drama about running backs right now, do you think he would have a big trade market?
No, I don't. And not at this point, because we've seen owners come together. We've seen players try to get back in the NFL. We've seen players ask for big deals and other teams not want to trade for them. We've seen Lamar Jackson when he did it. They said, look, go out and find yourself a deal. And none of the other owners wanted to help him negotiate his own deal with the Ravens. So we know these owners all talk. We know they have burner phones. Clearly the Arizona Cardinals had one because he was burner phoning his GM. So they have burner phones. They probably talk secretly all the time. You can say it's not colluding, but it is. But no, I don't think there would be. I think the owners would kind of come together with the GMs and just say, hey, look, Jonathan Taylor probably wants to be a Colt. Let's not help the Colts figure out what Jonathan Taylor's worth. Let's let them figure it out. And then if they don't know, then they cut him, then we can get him for cheap. Jonathan Taylor, on the other hand, this whole like back injury thing, and the reason they would do that for people to know, if they put him on a non-football injury deal, they don't have to actually pay him his salary this year too, because they would say it's mental health. They could say it's whatever. Then they could say like non-football related. Sorry, they could say like he did something outside the facility that had nothing to do with them. He's like, look, my back is fine. So they're lying. They're also maybe doing that for the trade market to say, look, his back's hurt. What do you know? What team wants you with a hurt back? Nobody wants you, Jonathan. You know, there's a lot in this, and it's all dirty to me. It just shows where the running back's going. Like a lot of running backs, I feel bad for a running back because I think going forward, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse before it gets better because a lot of teams have realized, again, I can win a Super Bowl without a top back. Isaiah Pacheco, Jet McKinnon. Like you go down the list. 2013, Marshawn Lynch was the last time a big-time running back helped his team win a Super Bowl. Just hasn't happened. So, yeah, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, it's crazy. 2 years removed from being a rushing champion, 1,800 yards, and now we're talking about him not having a trade market and being on the outs with his team. Unbelievable how fast things change. But if Taylor can't get a big extension at age 24, then, yeah, it is bad for the running backs right now. That's for sure. Last one, Jaren Hall. We're watching his every move. Vikings new quarterback, the 5th-round rookie, had a tough practice on Saturday. 2 picks. Neither of them were particularly pretty. Had an airmail to Mekhi Blackman. Had a late throw. Got undercut for another interception. What do you think Hall's biggest hurdle is as a rookie quarterback, head swimming in this offense here, July 31st? What do you think he's dealing with most right now?
Progression and speed. The speed of the game is so much faster. Progression, like for me, it was coverage and how quick they can change it and how fast everything moves and how quick you got to figure out what route you have. For a quarterback, I could not imagine. Like it's the terminology, the verbiage within the huddle, the play. You got to know the protection. Where's my protection coming from? Guys coming. Who's my hot route? If I get pressure early, who am I dumping it off to? What's my read progression? 1, 2, 3. And how quick do I need to do it? Like I can't. Okay. Nope, not him. Okay, not him. Oh, yep, him. And it's late, like you said. If it's late, it's an interception in the NFL. These guys are way too good. They're way too smart. And the defenses are built for the guys underneath to take chances. Underneath, you can never be late underneath because they're going to take a chance because they know they have help behind them if they take a chance and miss it and the guy makes a catch. So that's where he's got to have to learn. You got to figure out your progression. Honestly, like to run through 3 progressions in practice doesn't really work. Like in games, you have chances because you can run around. In practice, like pick 1 or 2. Know your matchup right away you're going to, and that's going to be his biggest hurdle. It's the speed and the progression. Like it's so fast.
I haven't been super impressed yet by Jaren Hall, but I think there's time, right? This is very early on in the process. Let's get him through some games. Let's get him through a couple weeks here and see what he can do. I think he's swimming a little bit right now. And also when you're playing with a third team, you don't have the best receivers. You don't have the best protection.
Correct.
So you're also disadvantaged in that way.
Yeah, I think for a guy like him, his legs are part of his game. And so we'll see preseason. Like when the full go preseason, I think, because I don't even think the group practices they're going to let these guys tackle quarterbacks or touch quarterbacks. But in the game, then we'll see. And I'm looking forward to that very first preseason game, the first Vikings game day live show. Because we're not going to talk much about Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson. Like, they're not going to go, I don't think. I don't think any of the starters are going to go. Kevin O'Connell did it last year where those guys didn't play. So my guess is he's going to have a similar take. I mean, it worked. Why switch it up when you went 13-4? So I think he's going to have a similar approach to the preseason where we're going to see a ton of Nick Mullins and Jaren Hall. Nick Mullins for sure, and then a lot of Jaren Hall late. And then we'll see. Like, this guy is an athletic freak. When you put Colin Kaepernick right out there with just 707, nobody would have thought of him as a starter. You put him in a game when he can use his legs, he became what he became, which is a great quarterback. Seneca Wallace was another one. He became when he realized he can run. That's where I think guys like that set themselves apart, when you actually see game speed and them running away from guys and then using some of the plays you created for this guy. But man, that was a great show today. I'm glad we got a chance to talk about Danielle Hunter. I'm glad he's a Minnesota Viking. I'm glad we got to talk about Sean Payton. I know this is going to come up more because coaches are going to ask all coaches in the pressers, and hey, what do you guys think about Sean Payton? And these coaches hopefully just say, I'm not getting that. Like, you talk about it. I might secretly talk to some coaches on the sideline and see, but I'm not going to bring it up. I'm not going to say what coach told me. I'm going to just say I talked to a coach and he told me this. Sean Payton is but we'll see. We'll see what they have to say. Fill in the blanks, people. Fill in the blanks. But question of the day, if you guys are watching on YouTube, Instagram, and you want to comment, here's a question of the day. Do you think the Vikings and Danielle Hunter will come to a long-term agreement after this season? That's a big question. Will they sign Danielle Hunter to a long-term 4 or 5 year deal that he wants? $88 million, I'm guessing, because you had 72 before. Maybe it's 88. Maybe it's 100. I don't know what he considers, but he's going to need a lot of sacks this year to even get considered for a big-time deal like that. But we'll see how he fits in this Brian Flores defense. I'm Ron Johnson. That's Sam Mex. I want to thank you guys for joining us. Remember, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartMedia, wherever you get your podcasts, you can get it, of course, on YouTube, Amazon Fire, and Roku. You can get all of our videos, all of our shows right there on your TV or your devices. This is a great way to keep up with our show. If you're at training camp, just pop on an episode while you're sitting there waiting for the players to show up, because I know you fans are getting in the stands early to get the best seats. So catch a little episode of the Ron Johnson Show while you're out at training camp. I'm Ron Johnson. That's Sam Ekstrom. I want to thank you guys. Have a great day.